You have a great kind of premise. You have a great idea. Excuse me. You have a great idea.
How's puberty working for you?
Good. My balls are finally dropping.
We're gonna talk about a new movie that's not out. When does this come out, Nick? Is it next Friday?
Next Friday.
Next
yeah,
Friday.
week from today.
So this movie it comes out a week from today. Now we can't talk spoilers, but I hadn't planned on it anyway. So what movie am I talking about? Wendell and Wild. The new.
Oh, I thought we were.
Huh?
What? No, I'm just kidding.
Did it?
I was gonna make a joke and I lost the train of thought. So
I was like, I know I told you we were going to talk about this.
no, I know I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to find a joke, but I lost the train of thought. So
I just went, I just ruined the joke. I'm sorry. But yeah, Wendell and Wild. We got to see this a bit early. It's coming to it's coming to Netflix October 28th. Yeah. It is Henry Selick's new flick. If you weren't familiar with Henry Selick, he has made things such as James and the Giant Peach, Nightmare Before Christmas. Yes, that was not Tim Burton. Tim Burton was an executive producer on it. One of my favorites, Coraline, and that was, I think, was a fantastic movie. It's Neil Gaiman.
Oh yeah, that movie's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a Neil Gaiman story, I believe. Great, just it looks great visual style, which that's what Selick is mainly known for, is his stop motion visual style. This movie also is stop motion, and it definitely, you see Selick's fingerprints all over it. Now this time around, it's coming from a book by Clay McLeod Chapman.
Yeah, it was a book that never got published, but it was between him and Selick, I guess.
Oh, I didn't know it was never published. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that Jordan Peele, Henry Selick, I see his fingerprints all over this thing, but I also see Jordan Peele in this thing.
Yeah.
There were specific points in the movie that I was like, that's Jordan Peele. And then I was like, that's Henry Selick. But ultimately, if you look up the synopsis of it, it says, two scheming demon brothers, Wendell and Wild, enlist the aid of 13-year-old Cat Elliott, played by Lyric Ross, to summon them to the land of the living. That is a very basic version of the story. We got Lyric Ross as our main character, Cat. Of course, it has the re-teaming of Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele as the titles Wendell and Wild. We've also got James Hong, Ving Rhames, of course. There's a lot of other people in it, of course, lots of other voices, but those are the big voices. Those are the big names that people know. Oh, Angela Bassett, she's in it as well. All right, so this movie, we're not doing a beat by beat or anything. This is just more, I want to go more of a traditional review, just talk a few minutes of it. I want to give our two thoughts. I think both of us were pretty knocked out by the time the end of it came around, and we were like, all right, night.
I actually went back and rewatched this just so I get my thoughts more in check. So gotcha. I was really tired that night. Yeah.
I was too. There at the end, I was kind of like,
yeah.
So well, the movie is pretty much, we've got the character Kat, played by Lyric Ross. Her parents passed away in the beginning of it. She's had a tough life. She's been in the system as an orphan, and she is now put at this, it's like a Catholic school, kind of. Not kind of, it is a Catholic school, boarding school. And she arrives at this Catholic school, and while there, she gets tangled up in, some demonic creatures, Wendell and Wild. They become attached to her, if you will, and she starts to want something from them, and they have something to offer, and they want something from her. They want to come to the real world, and she wants them to do a favor for them, and that's the dynamic. But then we have other things, of course, that happen, and we have like some land developers pretty much that get involved and are wanting to do some stuff to this town that they all live in, and just lots of stuff going on there. My overall thoughts of this movie: I thought it looked great. It looked fantastic. There's some really interesting things in its look in this movie. It's all stop motion. I thought the stop motion was great. I'm sure there's some assisted CGI here or there, but it all looked like it was straight up stop motion. It may be, I don't know, but so fantastic looking film. When compared to Coraline, now I'm going to compare this movie to Coraline a lot. It just is what it is. It was his last film. It's what I have to compare. Yes, you have Nightmare Before Christmas and all that, but Coraline was my favorite, so I am going to make those comparisons. Is what it is. I thought Coraline looked a little better, not in the animation and all that, but more in some of its more creative aspects. I thought it got a little bit more creative. Not to say this isn't creative. It has some very interesting imagery. But I do think that if you like Coraline's look, you'll like this one as well. Coraline was a little darker. Now, this deals with some dark stuff, for sure, but it's a little bit more comedic. Coraline was a bit darker, in my opinion. It was, yeah. This has more, a little bit more laughs or attempted laughs. Yeah. The story, this is where we got problems, in my opinion. I really wanted to like this movie, and there were things about it I liked, but I had a real hard time sticking with it. As I was watching it, it is all over the damn place. Like, all over, like, story narratively. It's just like, not, like, it jumps around. It's like it's got too much stuff going on, and it can't commit to one thing. And there were times I was just, like, so numb to everything that was going on in the movie. I was just like, I don't even know where we're at right now. What's going on? Like, it's just, I had a real hard time latching on to these characters. I really like Lyric Ross's character, the Cat, the main character. I like her portrayal. Yeah. The sister, the nun that Angela Bassett plays, I enjoyed her character. Some of the stuff they do with her character closer to the end, I was like, I wasn't in love with, but I didn't hate. It was fine. But Wendell and Wild, I did not like them as much as I thought I would. It was Key and Peele, and I love them. And I didn't love them here. I didn't hate them, but they felt kind of flat to me. Especially being like the title characters. They felt a little flat to me. Also, the movie is very predictable. Even though it is all over the goddamn place, there's nothing here that you're like, oh, catches you off guard. You know it, for me at least, I knew it was going to happen more or less in this movie as it was happening. I mean, in the very beginning, I couldn't have possibly thought what happens at the very end because the movie does like wildly swing all over the place. But as the movie was going on, I was like, this is what's about to happen. This is what's about to happen. I was not surprised by anything. I did not hate this movie, but it was not as good as I was hoping it would be. I was a bit disappointed, and it was all narrative. It looked fantastic, but it let me down a little bit in the narrative. It was a little weak in that department for me. How about you, Nick?
Right. Well, I think we've come to an impasse, Jacob. We've come to an impasse because I did watch I did watch this a second time because, like I said, I missed part of it because I did fall asleep. I didn't want to have an actual review out for it and not be honest because that's just not how I work. As I said in my review, the third act of this movie suffers, but I fucking love this movie. I love every inch of it because it's unique, it's original. It has characters that are like really disturbing to look at, which is what Henry Selick's characters have always been. But there's like a beautiful nature to them. And when you kind of settle down and you watch what Wendell and Wild are, they're not characters that are like, you know, with the cat and Coraline. They're characters that I don't want to spoil anything because it would spoil, but they're characters that are there for a specific reason, and they're just more like misunderstood than anything.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, and I get the simple fact of like you not liking because they're just kind of weak characters, but I thought they were fascinating characters, and the world that they inhabit, without spoiling anything, is fantastic. And you know the things that Kat goes through and kind of her story arc progression, and you know the characters you think are going to be like bad people or the rotten people or characters that are more dimensional than you ever think. And I'm glad you said that's where I
don't want to cut you off, but I agree. Yes, you have a point there. There's a group of characters in the beginning of the film, closer to the beginning of the film, that you think are going to be those characters. Yeah, and they're not. It did. Yeah. I said it didn't subvert any expectation. There it did. I will say that the movie did, as I was watching, because I immediately when I saw these characters, I was like, oh, it's them. It's those characters, and by the end, that's not what those characters were. And I did like that they did that.
Right. And absolutely, to be honest with you, it's hard to have a story compared to another story that is, of course, written by Neil Gaiman. I mean, Neil Gaiman is a legend in the
Yeah.
comic book world and the storytelling world. So Coraline was always going to be the better story just on a storytelling aspect because you have a great kind of premise, you have a great idea. Excuse me, you have a great idea.
puberty
Here,
working for you?
this is what's up?
Is it hell's puberty working for you?
Good. My balls are finally dropping. but, but no, this story is always going to be a little lesser just on that simple fact because, it's also the simple fact that, as we talked about before, Henry Selick was supposed to work on a Pixar movie that fell through. He was working on a Little Nightmares TV show, which if you ever played the video game, it's about this little small person in this like grotesque world and stuff like that.
Totally see him
And
doing that.
yeah, definitely. And here it feels like I think where the movie, like I said, has problems is there's a lot of messaging in this movie about certain things. One of the things we can't talk about is why the bad guys are doing what they're doing, that kind of stuff. The revelations in there, but
Talk about the characterizations too.
yeah. But like, there's some characters in here they're definitely playing off.
Yeah.
Some characters some characters, and some of the messaging is a little kind of in your face, which is what Jordan Peele is known for doing. That's why, us and Nope and Get Out are so strong minded when it comes to like the views of his world and the views of that side of society. And it's definitely prevalent here. But when I think this movie really works is when you show the Henry Selick creative side.
Yes.
When you get into like those really cool worlds that he presents. And here, like, everything, like, it's just a cool looking film. It's just an amazing looking film, like, especially where Wendell and Wild come from, and just that idea and how, like I said, it's beautiful but grotesque, and it's a very chaotic film. But
I don't think we totally disagree. I mean, I'm with you there.
But I think I liked it a lot more than you did. I think it's where it come off of. Like,
it sounds like it, but I do agree with everything you're saying as far as the aesthetic and the look and even the feel for the most part. I like what you said, and you do have a point, and I didn't elaborate as much. A lot of my issues with this movie are in the third act. The end of the second act, like the second half of the movie, the end of the second act and the third act as a whole, it gets sloppy. That's what I thought, narratively.
Yeah, it takes characters and starts doing things with them that feel very conventional. And that, the other issue with this movie is it's way longer than it needs to be. Because if you look at like James the Giant Peach and you look at like Nightmare Before Christmas, they're like an hour and 10 minutes. This movie's like hour and 50 minutes long. And I don't know how long Coraline is, but you can definitely feel its length after a while.
I remember we looked at it and we thought it was about to end, and it had like 30 minutes left. We were like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Like, I am with you. I think that's a big part. I'm glad you said that. Its length is a problem for me as well, because I really felt its length, and it wasn't just because I was tired. It was just because even if I'm tired, if I'm watching a great movie, I'm going to be invested in it. But man, I do think that the narrative structure, the narrative parts in the beginning, and you would say Kat's journey. I liked her journey. There were a couple of things I was like, it's a little conventional, but I did like her character's overall journey. But when we get to the end of her journey, I didn't dislike it so much. It's just I knew exactly what was going to happen as it was happening.
Yeah.
When you get to, and most of that, now that I think of it, does go to the third act. And like I said, it starts in the second act, but it's mostly the second half of the film. The first half was really good. I was enjoying that. And like you said, the look of where Wendell and Wild come from, that was awesome. The look of the film overall is awesome.
Well, yeah, because there's a character in this movie, and you'll know what I'm talking about, that deal with Wendell and Wild, and the way they play that character out, it just it comes in like really cool, and then just sputters out really quickly, and I'm like, that's so weird. I'm like, it almost feels like they were missing something, or they just didn't have enough time to animate it. But it was just how it happens and how quickly it resolves itself. I'm like, this is weird. So that's why the third act is trying to wrap up so much stuff at once that it starts to kind of unravel, unspool, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Well, that's what where the disappointing for me aspects came from. The movie.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and tell everybody. I didn't hate this movie, and I wasn't like just, oh my god, it's terrible. You shouldn't watch it. It's total disappointment.
Dude, he was screaming at the computer screen. What are you talking
I
about?
was. But no, like in all honesty, it wasn't like this movie. I thought it was awful.
Yeah.
It just was, and mainly because of the last parts of the film, it let me down a little bit because it did start with on a high. It was up here, and I really enjoyed what it was doing. Its look, the look had me from beginning to end because the look was aesthetically, the movie looked really great. Now, like I said, I do prefer some of the choices, artistic choices from Coraline, but that's a different movie, a different world. This one is different looking, but it still looks fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But it was all my issues are narrative. And you did help me hone in on that just now. It is that second half, mostly third act of the movie, it just didn't do it. It really started to peter out for me, and I not that I hated it, but I think it's because it started up here and it ended here. It didn't end way down here. I mean, this is still solid, but this was great. So to go from great down to solid just seems like there's a if it had started at solid and ended great, I think that would that's how you want your movie to end. You want to go out with a bang. I didn't feel like it did.
And that's why Coraline works so well, because it starts out with a bang and ends with a bang and just completely feels like a fully realized movie. And here it's just like, it almost feels like there was too much time between movies, to be fairly honest, that they were a little
that and you kind of hit the nail on the head a bit, and you said something really good, that I feel like they were, and I mentioned it, they tried to cram too much in, but a lot of that cramming in came after the halfway mark. Around the halfway mark, a little bit after, they start adding stuff. And it's like, why are you adding things now? You're supposed to add things in the beginning and pay off in the second part.
Right.
And you do get payoffs on that stuff. But in the second half, they start adding a bunch of stuff in. And then by the time you get to the end where your payoffs are, you've got so much to pay off. You can't really spend time, as much time as you'd like, on the things you want. Or as much time as you would like to get like a satisfactory payoff on a lot of these things. You get some satisfaction for sure, but it never felt totally satisfied. And there were a few things, I'm going to stay away from it from the most part, but there were some Jordan Peele things in there that, like you said, were kind of in your face. And this being more of a family film, I think it highlighted those things even more. And those things felt like, why is this here? Why is it here this prevalent? I'll say that. It didn't need to be. This was one more thing you added to it that you didn't necessarily have to focus on so much. And if you had not had this, or had it at least downplayed some, the movie would have been more satisfying overall. And you still would have told the same story. Because these things didn't really... The amount of stuff that they were... of time they were allocating to these things that we're talking about didn't really add anything to the story, in my opinion. That's where I'm at with it. I mean, you're not wrong.
It adds stuff, but then it starts adding too much stuff, and it starts trying to make points, and then some of those points fall flat. And it makes sense.
And I think a lot of it is because they just didn't have the time to devote to each of these things. They just had too many things to wrap up. The movie was already over long. I mean, there was... I can't really tell you what section needed to be cut out, but Jesus, you feel it by the time you get to the end of it. It's just like, good God, is this movie going to end? But overall, I mean, me myself, I know, Nick, you don't do ratings, and I have weird ratings. So, I mean, for me on my rating scale, I'd say this movie's worth checking out on streaming for my rating. So, it's over, and that's an overall. If you go on strictly visual, just the visual look and the aesthetic of it, I would say buy it on 4K Blu-ray, because I bet it looks fantastic. Because it does. It looks wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
And it is very creative. The whole stuff about where Wendell and Wild came from, that area was really creative. Now, like you said, there is a particular character they set up and then just comes and goes. And you're like, what? That really? They build it up, too. They build this thing up. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, well, okay. Bye. You're like, that happened. So, But yeah, for me, I would say it's worth streaming. It's a high worth streaming. It doesn't quite make it to worth a buy for me, but I know you rate things. Well, you don't rate things, period. But I think people get your feelings from.
Yeah, I mean, like I do ratings for like, yeah, I for most things, like TV shows, I do ratings, but I'm right there with you. So in that kind of realm.
Cool. Well, that was our look, our views, our thoughts on Wendell and Wild, everybody. It comes out next Friday as of this recording on Netflix. I do think it's worth checking out, especially if you like Selick's previous work, such as Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas and stuff like that. I think for I speak for both of us to a degree that, yeah, it's worth checking out. It is definitely worth checking out, but just keep your expectations in line. Yeah, I think it's a really good film, but, you know, just know what you're getting into when you get it, when you go see it. All right, so let us know in the comments below. Once you guys see Wendell and Wild, or if you were able to see it early, what did you think? And once you have seen it, let us know. Did you enjoy it? Do you agree with our comments, or do you think we are just full of shit? Let us know in the comments below.